Do you want to see a project go from this to this to this? You're in the right place. Psst, down here. Hey, have you hit subscribe? It's free. On with the video. Welcome to the mega episode. The goal, to automate every facet of vitamin production on the Cobblemon SMP. We've got a good start. In the last few episodes, I built an iron farm, a sheep farm, and then a medicinal brewing machine and auto protein maker. This contraption has allowed me to auto-craft proteins. But there's a lot more besides the medicinal and protein makers that we have to take care of today. Each of the vitamins have specific recipes that will require automated farms, and some items will require additional crafting machines or sub-farms. So first we're going to focus on automation, and then we're going to focus on aesthetics. With everything I want to accomplish today, this video is definitely going to be a little bit longer, so grab some snacks, sit back, and let's get started. To start, I expanded the factory base a bit with a new room and a fun little glass walkway between the rooms. This next room is going to house my furnace system, user interface, and a 5-way skeleton farm to produce all the bones we need. So on stream the other day, I spent some time preparing us to move some spawners here, where we're going to be setting up kind of a classic kill chamber dungeon with looting. And you may be wondering, how are we going to do this, considering there's no spawners here? Well, luckily we have the Carryon mod, so we'll be able to go grab some spawners and set them up here to optimize our skeleton farming and get all the bones we need. I had written down the coords to some skeleton spawners, so it just took me some time to go out and grab them, carry on them, all the way back to my base. Once they were back at the factory location, it was time to grab a little tinted glass. I love tinted glass as it doesn't let light through, but we can see the spawners working. So I farmed some amethyst geodes to grab enough amethyst to make the tinted glass and made a dome over top. Then all we had to do was turn it on, and I added an on and off switch, and this is the final product here in front of me. Yes, very simple on and off switch over here that just toggles on some lamps. But when they're not on, it's dark in there, and we get some spawns. The skeletons go down in a water stream and then fall down so that they're basically half a heart, as you see right there. And I can sit here with my looting sword, kill all the skeletons, and all of their drops go into this diamond backpack that I have a magnet upgrade, some storage upgrades, and a void upgrade to get rid of all the stuff I don't need. So there we go. Really simple skeleton dungeon farm to start off the episode. And I've also realized that this fit is not going to be adequate. It is way too cozy, and we need a factory/construction fit. So let me get that going. Oh, there. Okay, yes, there we go. Construction zoned. I am construction zoned myself with some construction pants and a tool belt and some suspenders. This is as good as it's going to get for me. So now that we're ready with that, I gotta get a furnace going because obviously the medicinal brewing machine needs glass bottles to run, so we need something, kind of an industrial-sized furnace over here. Step 1 of building the furnace was finding a good tutorial to base everything off of, and I've been a fan of this guy for a while now. His username is Potato Noir, and he's uploaded a super great deep dive into super smelters, what's on YouTube, what's available, and how to optimize it to the fullest. Now, given that, I figured that we don't need something that is completely optimized to the fullest. Like, we don't need a bone meal bamboo farm really connected because we have some mods that make getting lava buckets a lot easier. And what I mean is, like, look at this diamond backpack. With these stacks, we can really easily manage and stack lava buckets and collect them. So dealing with a fuel source that is less than perfectly efficient isn't really an issue in this instance. Regardless, check out his content. Link will be in the description. It's a really great video. So what I did to start was just built one of these 16 furnace super smelters. Now, the good thing is it only takes about 30 seconds to build. The issue, though, is that there's no real great way to interface with it besides coming back here, throwing in the items, and then clicking the levers to send it to go, which is totally fine in most situations, but I want something that's going to be a little bit more automated and have a little bit more of an interface so I can just basically be like, yep, I put everything in this chest and it does its thing. I don't have to interface with it, the machine itself at all. So with Potato Noir's farms not really being a great fit for this, I scourged the internet and eventually found this farm here and a tutorial and world download from Adil Games. So I built this one, and I think that this 32 furnace smelter that smelts around 20,000 items per hour is going to be a good fit, especially considering that the interface clearly had an input and an output that we could decorate and fit into the factory. I'm not shooting for perfect efficiency of all the farms and items that we have here, but I am trying to design a factory around complex interfaces so that we can interact with everything directly in one building. And this is the finished product of that. We have a small hallway, and in this hallway, we will be able to interface and put in our fuel. You see, I've loaded this thing up with the lava buckets. And then down here is where we put in the items to smelt. I also, of course, had to cover this thing with glass so we don't get Cobblemon spawning on top of it and messing up the rails. And with that, another piece is done, and I'm designing this a little bit at a time. So let's focus on the next chunk of this, which is going to be taking glass out of this system, and only glass, turning them into glass bottles, and then preparing them to be filled with water. And then we got to put all of the water bottles into those hoppers right over there, because those hoppers are feeding into the medicinal brew, which the medicinal brew circuits are in blue and purple. And once we have that system set up, we're basically ready to continue with the vitamin production, because the medicinal brews are the core item that every single vitamin uses. Anyway, I'm going to hop back to the designing mode, which I'm doing all in survival. So say a little prayer for me, but let me show you what I got. All the designing has been done, so let's take a quick run through the system. All the output for this system is going to be going out these droppers, up the water stream, and into this chain of hoppers pointing into a chest over here on this side. You can see here we got some lava buckets and some glass because I've been smelting. I also toggled a filter. I'm going to toggle it on here, and you can see if the light is on, the glass filter is on, which means that this thing will be filtering out the glass, and the glass will be going into this little auto crafter, which will auto craft bottles, and it'll spit out the bottles into this little machine that fills them with water. And after all of that, the water bottles are going to go down here into the system and fill up each one of these hoppers, with the one being red for the comparator being filled last. So this interface hallway gives the player a ton of options with how to interact with the furnace system. This switch will turn the filter on and off, and the bottle maker on and off. Of course, we have the fuel and the input for the smelter, the default smelter output down on this end, and I've also included a water bottle input and an empty bottle input just to go into the system. So let's give this thing a test. What we're going to do right now is leave the light filter on, which means that it is currently filtering out glass, and let's fill this thing up with some sand. I'll go down here and put a few stacks of sand into the system. This is actually all the sand that I have, so we'll just go ahead and put it in here. Now, what we'll be hearing soon is the dispensers or the droppers spitting out the smelted glass. This is going to be going through the overflow safe item filters. Then the glass is going down here and being put into this little system and turned into glass bottles. The glass bottle system is once again using a dispenser to dispense and pick up water, and then a second pulse to send it out, which will go into the system. And all of these glass bottles are going to fill up those hoppers, and eventually, once all the system is filled with hoppers, the timer will connect and medicinal brews will start being brewed. If you're playing the default Cobblemon pack, some things to consider are the inefficiency with lava buckets. Maybe you go with a better fuel source like planks or bamboo. But besides that, we're ready to continue with the next section, which is going to be focusing on using the bones we've got to turn them into bone meal, and covering all of the berries and mints that we've got to auto farm in order to get these things going. Alright, you can't just interrupt my video and be creeping around my skeleton farm, Trevenant. I'm keeping my eyes on you. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe. Let's do a little bit of inventory taking to see what else we need to make in order to make this factory a success. As we just finished, we've got the furnace, water bottle, and bottle maker and input into the system. The only thing we can't really farm here is glass. We've got an automated medicinal brew set up, though we need to automate to some degree blaze powder and medicinal leaks. That of course takes bone meal, as a lot of this farm will take bone meal, so that's why we set up the 4-way skeleton spawner, and a 5th way if I can get another skeleton spawner. In fact, bone meal is pretty important. Here are all the items that we need to create auto farms for using bone meal. I'm sure you've seen these farms before. They utilize dispensers spitting out bone meal to auto grow, and then we just sit and hold right click to farm the items more or less. 6 berry types, 6 mint types, wheat and beetroot, as well as the medicinal leeks and the revival herbs and vivichoke seeds if we are doing the PP maxes. Each one of the vitamins also needs a specific item in order to make it work, and the beetroot and wheat obviously we can farm with bone meal. Bone meal is also one of the items which, again, we have access to. That just leaves 3 other items. Pork chops. I set up a hoglin farm in the nether a few episodes ago and got all the pork chops we're ever going to need, so raw pork has been covered. That just leaves 2 more things that we need to farm today, which is the raw cod. It can really be any raw fish or tropical fish, raw salmon, and sugar, which is just a sugarcane farm. Of course, we can also farm beetroot and wheat using villagers, and we're going to be using a guardian farm to farm the raw fish, And that basically covers all the components that we need. We just have to make the interfaces connect up to the machines that we've designed before, and we're going to be good to go. So back on the server, I started expanding another room. Now this room is going to be for the bone meal farms. And like I showed in the previous section, there are 16 items, more or less, that we need to auto farm with bone meal. But that's easy enough. So I've made a little room here with 16 stalls, and if we stand on these pressure plates, they will automatically spit out bone meal, growing the item, and we can sit here and collect them to our heart's content. I'm still working on this room, but you can get an idea now of exactly how this is going to work with the different mints and the different medicinal leeks and whatnot. We stand here, and the dispenser will fire out bone meal. Of course, right now these are empty because we've got to connect up a bone meal maker from our bone farm up to all of these hoppers, and eventually basically create a silo system in order to store up a ton of bone meal and distribute it where it needs to go. On this side, we've got the berries, and these just grow slowly over time too, which is great. I've made some updates to the system. I've been building this moss-covered room for all of the bone meal farms, which is the bulk of the items that we've got to get done today, and I'm super glad to get this done. And it's being loaded in with bone meal as we speak, and I'll show you how I did it. So of course here in first person, you can see the skeleton spawn, and whenever we kill them, the bones are going to go into this backpack. You can also just use a hopper for this. I have a filter on here with the void upgrades, but just in case, I have a bonus filter down here. This is just a really simple impulse SV item sorter. And then all of these bones are running into a little clock, running into the auto crafter. Now, this is just simply auto crafting it down to bone meal, and the bone meal is going up a water stream, up and over and into the system, where we have a little zigzag, I guess you could say, of item streams that are balanced perfectly between the hoppers. What this is doing is sending the bone meal around the zigzag and going to fill up all the hoppers, pots, and dispensers in this room with bone meal. Once the system is full, there is a chest at the end for some item overflow, just in case. And so this is something that can kind of just always be going. If there's too much bone meal being produced and it's not being used because maybe you're AFKing at the skeleton farm, but we don't need the bone meal, we could just eventually run this into a cactus or lava. So to get rid of all the overflow, it's kind of an overflow proof, foolproof system. I'll go ahead and kill a few skeletons here just for good measure, so you can see their bones are going to be turned into fuel for the plants that we got to grow in this room. So over here, you'll see that we've got some berry systems and all these plant systems. If we just stand on the pressure plate, everything will get activated. And we've got another little add-on in this pack that allows me to auto-harvest and plant while you're right-clicking with a hoe. So we'll just go ahead and test this out. Yeah, not too bad, right? And there we go, just like that, 20 beetroot, or maybe a few more. And the system is automatically going to be refilling with bone meal as it's coming around. Super foolproof system, and a great way for us to auto farm all of these items in this little room. We don't even have to go outside and do our farming. We can just do it all in here. We just got to add a little input chest so that, like, you see now I've got some items here. I just need to basically put a chest here to input them into the system, but that'll come eventually. I've also made some edits to the big room here. We've got the system on right now, so if I do a little flyover, you might see some proteins being created and flown into the system. We've got some water bottles being made and sent into the system as well. And I've changed this part down here to include some storage because, well, I found a problem, and that was if we send too many water bottles into the system, there is a little bit of an overflow problem. So all I did was added an extra water stream. And this water stream will just ensure that any water bottles won't just sit on top of the hopper, and they will go into the chest. If they do despawn, it's not that big of a deal, but yeah, that's basically what we're working with right now. So learn from my mistakes. Think of the item overflows, because with the water bottles, I never figured we'd be putting enough water bottles in the system at one time to break it. But if you are using the auto crafter and auto water bottle filler, then you can definitely overflow the system and throw in more water bottles than the medicinal brew machine can keep up with. These chests behind me, these 12 double chests, it's just a precaution. The list of items that we've got to farm today and auto farm is shrinking. And that's awesome. That means we're getting one step closer to finishing this factory and having everything be fully automated inside of the game. So the next farm we had to take care of was the sugarcane farm. And these have been in the game for, well, it seems like forever. So I went with a really simple design using mud, sugarcane, and some water streams. We're just farming the sugarcane up until it hits an observer, and then it gets a block update, and the slime blocks push the sugarcane over and into the water stream and down into some hoppers. And then to save on some hoppers, I've got some hopper minecarts running underneath to pick up all of the items. All the sugarcane runs down here to this end where it goes into an auto crafter that is being read out of this comparator. This hopper sends a pulse, turns it into sugar. And you can see here, we've already got a decent amount of sugar, and every 2 stacks of sugar, some just went through the system now. Every 2 stacks of sugar is going to equal a stack of carbos. So it's awesome. We just got to get this connected up to the rest of the machines when we're ready. I've also connected a little chest up here just to have everything else. We're eventually going to feed it back into the system. It's got to go into that one right there. And just like that, sugar is done, which means we only got 2 more items we need to farm for today. Blaze rods for blaze powder and fish. And funny enough, we kind of already got fish solved. Let's head over to Lilith's Guardian Farm, and I'll show you what we're cooking with. About 100 blocks south of my island is a small little Guardian Farm made over top of an ocean monument, and server mate Lilith made this thing. It really doesn't get more simple than this farm. Some soul sand is going to push up the Guardians into this section here, and apparently some quillfish as well. And then they die on the campfires. And let me show you how the spawning sphere works. In fact, I'm going to take a little flight. Here we go, up to the spawning area. And when we get up here, you're going to notice that all of the other guardians are going to despawn. And they're only going to spawn in this corner where the soul sand is, which makes the farm really, really productive. The only downside of this farm currently is that, well, there's the Elder Guardian is still there, so I have mining fatigue, and the item input is down there, which means I've got to just AFK here and collect the raw cod and then go down there and manually pick it up. But you know what? This is totally fine. I don't really want to upgrade Lilith's farm for right now, but if you want to build one in your own world, yeah, they're not that complicated. So I've got some AFKing in this little glass bubble to do, but that is another item down for today, which means we only got 1 more item that we've got to farm. Blaze rods. And that means after I'm done AFKing here, I gotta head into the nether. So let's do that. So into the nether I went, and I grabbed some blaze spawners running away from all of the hostile mobs that were trying to kill me. Luckily, it wasn't too bad to bring these back to the overworld. Now, if you don't have the Carryon mod and you want to make a blaze farm, you gotta build it in the nether. But you can just kind of follow the same steps I'm doing here, but just replace the water with lava because, well, blaze will flow in the lava, and lava flows pretty quickly in the nether. So just creating a cube like this that can funnel all of the blaze into a little 2x2 kill chamber is all you really got to do. And back in the overworld, you can see that, yeah, that's basically all I've done here. A big kill chamber with some glass, some slabs over top. We got 2 spawners in there, count them, 2. Yeah, this should be totally fine. I was trying to figure out how to disable this thing and make it so they don't spawn, but the light levels are insane for blazes. Like, they'll spawn if there's any darkness at all. They don't really care about light levels as much, but hey, we got 2 spawners in here, and that's all we really need. And I've decided to add it at the end of this hallway, and you might be wondering why. Well, there's a few reasons. One is we don't really need this connected up to the system. We can manually add in the blaze powder into a chest that I'll show you here in a moment. And I don't want this thing loaded all the time because blaze sounds are really obnoxious, so I wanted to put it in a random corner of the factory at some point. I also have been testing around with some different aesthetics, as you might notice, bringing in some brick, terracotta, and granite in here, because as I've been designing the exterior of this build in a creative world, I realized we might be able to bring a little bit of the Industrial Revolution kind of pseudo-modern look into the inside. And third, blaze rods are great fuel sources, so in the future we can always just grab these blaze rods and stick them right here in our fuel source once all of our lava buckets have ran out, or even set up an automated way for us to just take these and put them over here or put them into the system. It won't be that hard to do. And talk about getting levels. This is a pretty solid way to get levels because blaze drop twice the XP of other mobs, so obviously more work to do here. We got to put a ceiling in on this thing. And I also had to just adjust where the output for the furnace system came in. But that was it, just adding a little room onto this end. out of the way where Blaze can spawn, fall into the water where they do take a little damage, but it doesn't matter because, well, yeah, we're going to kill them anyway. And let me show you where the blaze powder goes once you get it. This hopper here pointing into the side of this brewing stand is where the blaze powder goes. And right now I'm reading out of that with the comparator showing that there is excess blaze powder in this hopper. But if there's ever not, then it will toggle this torch tower, toggling this lamp right next to the medicinal leak and the water bottle, showing that it is out. And then we can just quickly load it back in right here. I wanted the inputs for these to be really simple, so I just have a chest here for blaze powder and for medicinal leaks, and all they do is go straight down to the medicinal brewing system that we built a few episodes ago. And I've actually been playing around, like I said, with designing the interior and changing a little bit. And I know I've built a lot of the interior so far with this kind of pattern floor and the gradient walls. I'm not loving it. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. So I've been playing around with, again, going with a modern interior of like concrete and quartz, and then throwing in some splashes of something a little bit more industrial, like the granite and the bricks. It may be hard to see the vision now, but I think that this is going to be a good direction that we can take this place and go for. But now that we've got all of the farmable items that we need to farm done in order to produce vitamins here, automatically, the only real thing left, besides the aesthetical parts, is the machines themselves. Yes, this area is all empty, right? Because we only have one machine right now, well, the medicinal brewing machine, and then the protein maker, right? And we need to build one of these machines for each and every vitamin we want to produce. And right now, there are 5 other vitamins I need to produce. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one more on this side. The carbos, the calcium, the HP up. Yeah, so 5 more to do. And I'm going to be using Lightmatica to copy and paste more or less this system here. But that's enough talking and enough explaining because I've just got to get back to building. Many hours later, and all the machines are in, and I'm going to be going over and showing you how they all work by basically turning some of them on and letting the system work. But let me talk you through what I've done. First off, from a technical standpoint, I've updated this water bottle input system just a loop. And this is something you might want to consider if you're building this yourself, because the water bottles, well, they got 5 minutes to despawn, so there's no need to immediately put them in a chest. Instead, I'm just having them loop around this little system here with the hoppers, and this will fill up the hoppers. And if they don't, they'll come back around and fill it up once the medicinal brew machine has used some water bottles. And this interface here in front of me is the medicinal brew interface and everything that we need for it. As you can see, we're all good here except for, well, the water bottles right now. Next up, I added in all the vitamin machines, and I've double checked all of them are working. There are a few items that are out of stock right now, and if we come down here to, like, for example, this interface here, you can see zinc production, and yep, we're out of medicinal brews. I've also added a lever and lamp for each hopper locking for the medicinal brews, so that way, if the medicinal brew machine is on, that if we want to, let's say, get medicinal brews in the zinc production, all we've got to do is turn on and lock the hoppers of all of the other medicinal brew inputs, except for that one, and that one will fill up with medicinal brews. Secondly, I've connected the sugar up to the system, but we've got plenty of sugar right now, so I actually just went ahead and removed that because, yeah, we've got enough sugar in the system to make many stacks of HP ups, but I have connected this chest right here in front of me up to the system so that if we put an item in here, it'll go into the system and it'll actually go in a loop. If you look at this ice stream, you'll see that the ice stream just loops around continually all over the vitamin machines, and if it's not something that can be put into the vitamin machine, well, then it'll eventually despawn. So let's see this thing in action. I know right now the machine is empty and needs a few items, wheat and hondu berries. So let me get to crafting up a few of those and bone mealing them and getting those, and then we'll come on, dude, get off, stop it. And then we'll put that into the system. I've got the Hondu berries and the wheat. Let's input them into this chest here, which will spit them out into the system. You'll see that they will go around the machines, the vitamin machines, and eventually align themselves and go into the hoppers that they need to go in. And since we've got that going into the system right now, if we come over to the interface and look at for example, the carbos one here, which takes wheat, as soon as we get the wheat into the system, you'll see that this light will go off, which means we can now make some carboses, which means if I turn on this light, it will activate the carbos making machine, and when the timer goes off, it'll start spitting out some items to make the carboses, and eventually spit out a carbos up into the system. And as soon as it's done, we'll also be able to see that the Hondu berries go into the system. And with the Hondu berries in the system, we'll also be able to craft these calciums right here. So I'll turn on these lights. In fact, I'll go ahead and turn on all the systems that have items in it, like the protein maker right here. And this will just start making some items in the background. The only thing I think that could improve this system right now is we need more medicinal brews, which is kind of a bummer. But I'm going to be manually farming some medicinal brews too, and if that's not fast enough, then eventually I can build some more automatic medicinal brew makers. They're pretty easy to make, to be honest, and that should solve the problem of getting medicinal brews into all these machines. But if I look in this chest down here, you'll see we have quite the collection of items already that this machine has already made, and we're getting them as we speak. In fact, I gave some to Liv on stream the other day, and she came back and dropped off a chest of snow blocks that I'm going to be using for the exterior of this building. So thank you to Liv, and I hope the EV items are put to good use. So before we talk about the outside of the building, which is going to be next, I've also updated the building in the room that we're in now. And I want to continue this update through the rest of the build. It is kind of a industrial modern look. And this is done a lot with buildings that have maybe a historic origin, where there's a lot of support structures of brick and granite, and they want to come through and utilize the space in a new modern way. So we've got some smooth walls, smooth textures, like maybe some painted drywall or something like that, and then that is going to be complemented by the rough textures of maybe it's the original floorboards for the ceiling, some exposed wiring with the lightning rods and the chains and the anvils, and the original support structures of the building. I think that this pseudo-modern look is a lot of fun. It's something that a lot of industries and places are doing now, taking old industrial buildings built in the 1800s, renovating the insides to fit a new, slightly more modern aesthetic where the two worlds meet. You get a really unique look, and I think it works great for what we're trying to do here. A modern factory in an old building, and the exterior of the build is going to be an old industrial factory looking build. I'm pulling it from some inspiration of some builds that I've looked at IRL, I've looked at online, and I've been designing, and oh boy, I'm excited to get the building. But it's going to involve a lot of getting items ready and doing a lot of farming, so I'm going to get to work on that. And you know what, let's just cut to the chase, and let's do the exterior of the factory, at least the main structure, because that's really the last thing that I've got to do now. The rest of the factory is working. Need some more interior touch-ups, but I just got to build. Well, hold on a minute there, JB. Did you think this was going to be fast? You know, I was like, yeah, let's get to building. Here, let me show you what Lightmatica can do. But this is going to take a lot of work, and as you can see, I need a lot of blocks. Yeah, 50,000 blocks. I need 50,000 blocks. 50,000 blocks. 50,000 blocks. I hope you enjoyed the time lapse because this has hands down been the largest project I've ever tried to tackle. I think in a Minecraft world, and definitely in one episode. But I am so pleased with how everything turned out, and I want to talk about it. So it took about 40 hours in total to collect all the material, design the building, transport it into Lightmatica, and rebuild it here on the BattleCraft SMP. Oh, but it was a labor of love though, and what I've designed here has been greatly inspired by the Joseph Schlitz Brewery building built in 1890 in Milwaukee. Of course, designing this, I wanted to feature a ton of windows, a bunch of asymmetry. It is mostly a campus that takes up an entire block, which is perfect, and as you see, I've built a street going around, kind of showcasing that it does indeed take up a whole block of, well, I guess Milwaukee in this case. I've even included some street lamps and lights, some places for some street signs, and did a little bit of landscaping around the outside of the block. But let's get on to the main build itself. This build features hundreds of windows and is heavily inspired by the detailed brick architecture, a lot of vertical pillars, support pillars. I figured we just needed square shell. So on the top, you'll notice that we have a bunch of smokestacks, a bunch of little accents. Once again, are pulling inspiration from that industrial late Gothic period. This involves a lot of pointy things like fences, using fences and candles, and the walls. And for the smoke in the smokestacks, some places I'm using campfires for now, but I've also done some glass work using some gray, light gray, and white glass and panes to create this smoke effect, which I think looks great. I've also included a bunch of sun lights up here, which I don't think would be in the original build, but it was a way to get some lighting down on our redstone. Another cool part of this build, I think, is the asymmetry. Every side is unique, with some sides featuring higher modules and some smokestacks, while other sides might feature just a standard kind of corner support, or even a clock tower on this side, which is definitely my favorite. 5,000 to 6,000 bricks, about 5,000 to 6,000 blue terracotta, thousands of quartz blocks and diorite, but I think it is really strong. The design has a lot of dynamics to it. Like I said, a lot of vertical support with all of the glass and window structures in them. And I think it turned out great. It's a great way to finish off this factory build. This also gives me plenty of room in the future to expand my little industrial island, because a lot of this even is covering up my wool farm and my iron farm, which is great. We can just stack a bunch of industrial builds over here, and in the future, we can expand this area. And on the inside, you're able to see exactly how large this build is. Oh yeah, it took me a while to get all this glowstone too, but I really liked with the shaders. You can see the lights coming in from above, pouring down on all of the redstone contraptions here. Of course, we've already talked a lot about the redstone designing and the redstone contraptions, and I haven't really had to make any edits to this stuff at all. I've also given the interior an overhaul. So let's go inside so we can take a look at what I've done. Firstly, you walk through the doors here and you're greeted with some of the blocks from the outside, the old bricks, terracotta, granite, some chains, and the lightning rods treated as wires. Of course, you've already seen this room too. So what I've done is expanded this theme with the oak and apricorn ceilings, the support beams in brick and granite, and the light gray concrete into the other rooms. I left this little hallway here mostly untouched from the beginning of the episode, and then I've updated this room here with the skeleton spawner to include the light gray concrete walls, again, apricorn's oak ceiling, and some quartz features and some smooth quartz features and some brick features, leaving plenty of room here for some chests to put the backpacks in and items that I get from the skeleton spawner, as well as some spaces for things like shulker boxes for when I'm collecting some bulk material. Down here, I haven't made too many changes to our smelter, and everything has been working great since we're not getting Pokemon spawning in here, stopping the minecarts. Everything's been working like a charm. I am very happy to announce the only other room that we needed to update was this one. Again, bringing in some of the support structures with the brick, bringing in this deep slate floor, the highlights of the cyan carpet around the outside, some support beams and electrical wiring with the lightning rods and the anvils. And I think the lanterns hanging from the ceiling is a great final touch. I love the color scheme in here. The light gray, the brick, and the warm wood colors of the ceiling I think is perfect. And with that, the aesthetical part of this build is done. The technical parts are also basically done. We've got everything working like a charm, because I know a bunch of people have been watching my streams and designing their own. Remember, what my goal was here is not really to focus on peak efficiency, but to focus more so on creating these interfaces that I could interface with so everything was accessible in one factory design. I think that you could just open up a blank space, and if you're not worried about accessing machines and clean interfaces, then you could design something way more compact and way more efficient. And I challenge you guys to do that, and I want to see what you come up with. The only other thing I think that could make this place a little bit better would be an updated medicinal brewing machine, and that's something that I want to tackle off camera and get it implemented, because right now I'm actually manually farming a lot of the medicinal brews, and because medicinal brews are used in every vitamin, yeah, we need a lot of these bad boys. I've been manually farming them here, and it's not too bad, just some hoppers and some chests, and this is a great way to get plenty of these to pass around to all of the vitamin machines. And speaking of all the vitamin machines, take a look at all the vitamins we've got. Right now, I've just kind of stacked it in here so that we can get a nice line of vitamins, but many stacks of vitamins, and we are ready to continue our battling and TCG style of training, because my gym is coming up next. That's kind of the next thing I want to work on, and for that, I'm going to need to EV train, and luckily, we now have that down. Well, everyone, this episode has taken an insane amount of time. I've been recording for 3 weeks straight, which is not something that I normally do. But I hope that you've enjoyed this longer episode, and hope you appreciate all the work that I put in here, all the artistry of designing the building, designing the redstone, and of course storytelling and keeping you up to date with the progress along the way. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and I'll catch you guys soon with another one here on the BattleCraft SMP. See you next time, guys.